In the previous video, we talked about how to find the side length of a non-right triangle using the law of sines. So we're going to continue with the law of sines and talk about how to find a missing angle. So remember, anytime we're trying to find the measure of an angle, we have to use the inverse of that trig function. So the setup is still going to be the same way. So I'm going to start by drawing a non-right triangle. And I'm actually going to switch to green here. All right. Now again, how you're labeling your triangle doesn't matter as long as once you have it labeled, you are filling in things correctly. So this time we're finding angle C. So I'm going to put an X in that angle just to remind myself that's one that I'm trying to find. You don't have to do that. You can mark it with a theta or any placeholder you want. Okay. Next, we're told that angle A is 50 and side A is 3 and side C is 2. Okay. Now again, anytime we're using the law of sines, we need to use an angle and a side across from it. We're going to have two pairs of that. Okay. So we have our picture. I have an angle, side across from it, angle that we're trying to find, and I know the side across from it. So I'm ready to set up that proportion. So we're going to have the sine of 50 over 3 equals the sine of, I can use X or I can use C, doesn't really matter. I'm going to use X since that's how I labeled it. And then that is over 2. Okay. And just like before, we are going to cross multiply. So I will have 3 sine of X equals 2 sine of 50. Okay. Now keep in mind that we're trying to find X, and X is paired with sine. So these two things have to stay together until we do the inverse. So this time we're going to have to divide by the number 3 to both sides. Okay, so that's going to cancel out. Okay. So now I have the sine of X equals 2 sine 50 over 3. Okay. So now to get rid of sine, we are finding the inverse of sine of both sides. Okay. So these two things will cancel each other out, and that's how I get the X by itself. So this is going to be X equals the inverse sine of, and then this big fraction, which I did not leave a lot of space. Well, I'm going to write this underneath. So X equals the inverse sine of 2 sine 50 over 3. So we are going to type that whole thing into our calculator. Again, if you haven't checked your mode, make sure that you are in degree. Okay, so I have to start with the inverse part. So if you're looking at our trig function here, the inverse is above the key. So I need to do second sine and then 2 sine 50. Now make sure you close that parenthesis, then the divide key 3. And it doesn't matter if you close the last parenthesis or not. Okay. And we are still rounding to 2 decimal places. So X is going to be approximately 30.71, and I need to label it with degree. Okay. All right, so again, I want you to pause the video and go ahead and practice 5 and 6, and the answers for those will be in Google Classroom.